Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Conservative Arkansas Media. My name is Paul Harrell. It's great to be back with you. So, this week is spring break for, I'm assuming most of Arkansas, most of public schools are out. It's also spring break for the Arkansas General Assembly. They've taken the week off, although, as we'll find out later in the show, a lot of meetings are still going on. A lot of legislative strategies still being played out as we are in this spring break period. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air, or at least a time to rest and a time to get together. How is the Arkansas General Assembly going to finish? Are they going to finish strong? Let's hope so. I'm very optimistic about it. I think it's been a fantastic session so far, and I think a lot of hard work, grassroots conservatism has really paid off. I mean, it's been a decade in the making, but this has been a huge session, and of course, I've been focused on protecting our families and protecting our kids from the slope of depravity from the Rainbow Gestapo, goose-stepping gay lobby, and there's been some really, really fine pieces of legislation. We're going to talk about a little bit more of that coming up. But one thing is, we've got national headlines. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders has made national headlines. Now, she was making national headlines because of the LEARNS Act, because of the school choice. What an amazing... there have been people working for school choice much harder. I mean, I've just covered the news on it, but it was never really just... it was always a good thing, always wanted it. But there were other issues as well that I've spent more time on, in my years as a journalist. But I mean, there are people who are celebrating right now because of the LEARNS Act. And if you want to check in real quick, we'll check in over at the Arkansas Times, which nobody's ever done yet. This is the Arkansas Times. This is a photo of a protest. School vouchers, it's just politics, is what the headline says. And there's somebody saying that Faubus is back on steroids. They're comparing. They're comparing school vouchers, or some leftists are comparing school vouchers to the Little Rock Nine, the National Guard, and Governor Orville Faubus. These are not serious people anymore, just so you know. These are not adults. We do, thankfully, I think, have more adults who are in positions of power now, and it's their turn to try to start handling this. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting how, the stereotypical, this type of stuff, this type of rhetoric plays well on the national scene when the Democrats and the communists essentially have control of every institution. But Christian red states are pushing back and are actually exerting themselves in ways that I think we were too timid and scared to do, even 2 years ago, even 5 years ago. But I think now we realize, wait a second, we've got to stand up and do something about this. Matter of fact, there was no greater example of this, in my opinion, and I reached out to her and told her, State Representative Mary Bentley, when she went to the floor last week to kind of push through this library bill, SB 81, that was designed to protect our kids from pornographic books that sexualize our kids in public libraries and school libraries. And I was kind of upset. There was just lies being put out there on the House floor about what the bill was going to do. Actually, they were saying, I think it was Representative Deanne Vaught who went down to the well, and she said, she basically was trying to say that this wasn't a problem, that these pornographic books were not a problem. And I posted a Facebook post on it because I thought it was just shameful what she was doing as a Republican running cover for the LGBTQ issue that we're all facing right now. And to say that it's not an issue or to downplay it, I mean, I'm a father of somebody that wants to go to the library and utilize the library, and yet you can't because you have to protect your child from these books that are within the reach of children. And it's disgusting, and it is very much a real issue. Hats off to State Representative Stephen Meeks, who came down and talked about his experience in Conway, Arkansas, and how they have pornographic dirty books for kids available to kids there. I got a text from a family member saying the library in Little Rock has terrible books, sexualized, LGBT, pro-rainbow. We're going to teach your kids about sex and gay sex at as young of age as we possibly can. Obviously, it's happening in Jonesboro, it's happening in Fayetteville, it's happening all across the state. So to go down to the well and to say it wasn't happening is just madness, in my opinion. But anyway, so yeah, the Learns Act, Faubus is back. No, these are not serious people. But anyway, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders making national headlines for signing this piece of legislation. You see this on your screen there. This is from Breitbart News, which is, very much a, let's just call Breitbart News a Republican National Convention mouthpiece. It's a far cry from what it used to be. Nevertheless, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signs law prohibiting transgender restrooms in schools. Way to go, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Quote, the bill signed by Republican governor makes Arkansas the fourth state to place such restrictions at public schools, and it comes as bills in Idaho and Iowa also await their governor's signature. Now, here's where I want you to pay attention, Arkansas. And it might be followed by an even stricter Arkansas bill criminalizing transgender adults using public restrooms that match their gender identity. So this bill that Sarah Sanders signed has to do with bathrooms inside schools, okay? Inside schools. Matter of fact, she's got a great quote here that I want to make sure that we cover about, or is it from the spokesperson? This is Henning, okay? Here it is. Yeah, Alexa Henning, the spokesperson for Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, says the governor has said she will sign laws that focus on protecting and educating our kids, not indoctrinating them, and believes our schools are no place for the radical left's woke agenda. Arkansas isn't going to rewrite the rules of biology just to please a handful of far left advocates. Bravo. Bravo. I mean, it's certainly a new day in Arkansas where the governor, her spokesperson, are saying all the things that all of us, or most of us, a vast majority of us that actually live in Arkansas, what we actually believe. Not a corporate, not necessarily from the corporate lens, but no, we're not gonna do it. But back up to this part, as I just mentioned here. It might be followed by an even stricter Arkansas bill criminalizing transgender adults from using public restrooms that match their gender identity. Now, that bill that they're talking about is this bill. This is SB 270. It is by Senator John Payton. Matter of fact, Senator John Payton will be coming on the program this week, today. So he's coming up here in just a minute. We're going to talk more about this bill, an act to amend the criminal offense of sexual indecency of a child. And again, you see it there. And for other purposes, this would be a bill that would say, hey, look, if you've got a minor in a bathroom and you're gonna go in there, you're a biological male or a biological biological male, want to dress up as a woman, but you want to use the women's restroom, and you've got a minor in the bathroom with you. That's a crime, and that's what this is seeking to address. And if you thought the left hated the last one, you just wait, because they're going to have a meltdown over this for sure. But we've got to stand strong, and we've got to get this one passed. It's already out of the Senate. I think it's going to be before the House Judiciary Committee sometime next week after this spring break interim period is over. But speaking of leftist meltdowns, it's not the only one. It's not the only issue. Coming up later in the broadcast, we're going to be talking once again with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Last week, I told you that his bill to end affirmative action in Arkansas as we know it, affirmative action with its racist policies and saying if you are a woman or if you're a particular racial minority that you're going to get hired over somebody else who's equally as qualified, like a white person or an Asian person, that sort of thing. This seeks to end that status quo. Well, the left successfully, through legislative trickery, we showed you the video, State Representative Jeff Wardlaw in the Republican committee last week, doing hand signals on camera, getting the bill that was going to be placed on the deferred list, which was a place where you can have more debate. He got the bill tabled last week with this, he was telling some guy, we need to just table it. We need to table it. Well, once you table it, it becomes very difficult to do anything. And so I reported that the bill was dead. This affirmative action bill was dead. The mainstream media reported that this affirmative action bill was likely dead. I can report to you today, though, that's not the case. State Representative Justin Gonzalez made a motion to remove it from the tabled part, or, that's been placed on the table, and put it back on the deferred list, and it passed in a voice vote. Hats off to State Representative Dwight Tosh, the chairman of that committee, for doing the right thing and correcting this mistake. It's a big deal, and now this bill has new life. Well, because that bill has new life, there is Central Arkansas Water. So the utility company for Central Arkansas has has a Jedi Council. No, a Jedi Council, not the Star Wars Jedi Council, but a JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion. Did you know within Central Arkansas Water Utility they have a Justice, Equity, and Diversity and Inclusion Club? Well, they have found out about this. And they found out about this bill that would essentially end affirmative action with government in terms of government hiring practices. When the government goes to hire an employee, they're not going to be able to consider affirmative action policies the way they currently are, which is a Republican idea. It's been talked about for a very, very long time. Attorney General Tim Griffin has even said, hey, look, this would bring us back in line with constitutional principles. We have the United States Supreme Court that's likely to reverse affirmative action policies when it comes to college admissions. So this is all going on. But just to let you know that we have leftists in this state that are melting down over all of this, I can share with you an email that went out to the employees of Central Arkansas Water. It's up on your screen right now. Central Arkansas Water. That you see this Jedi team here. So in this bill, they claim that Senator Dan Sullivan's legislation to reform affirmative action policies is, you guessed it, white supremacy. Yeah, that's right. In an effort to keep, and I still don't know what this means. I've read it a whole bunch of times. Good morning, CAW. In an effort to keep all CAW employees HIV informed, the Jedi team would like to share information with you regarding SB 71. If you or someone you love is a woman, disabled, black, veteran, Hispanic, or Latinx, I thought we were done with that term. This bill will impact you and your loved ones. This bill that would end affirmative action in Arkansas is now back on the deferred list of the House State Agencies and Governmental Affairs Committee. It will likely be heard very soon after the legislature, or the legislature's back in session. I think they meant to say legislature there. Number one, this bill would criminalize any action by government entities that considers race, gender, ethnicity, and nationality. Yeah, I mean, we don't want people to discriminate. We don't want to discriminate against people based on that criteria. It's really simple. It's very simple. Matter of fact, my generation has been preached this our entire time in school and everything. You don't need to judge a person by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, unless you're applying for a government job. Then we want to consider race and ethnicity and gender. Also, we have the number 2 is my favorite. Not only does SB 71 promote white supremacy, but it also attacks all currently protected groups, including all women, veterans, and disabled Arkansans. Anyway, this bill is actually this email that you just saw on your screen that went out to Central Arkansas Water Utility Company is causing people to scratch their heads. It's causing conservatives to scratch their heads and say, hang on, wait a second. Why is this we're going to find out. Quasi-governmental. I mean, it certainly exists because it's a public utility. It certainly exists in this, at the very least, in this gray area between public and private entity. And why are they lobbying to kill pieces of legislation? Why are they lobbying their employees to call their state reps and senators to kill this legislation? Why does Central Arkansas Water Utility have a justice and equity and diversity and inclusion team? Because, you want to know why? Because we live in a day and age where people who are left of center and far left have to, and yes, some on the right, but have to see everything, every ounce of their life has to be viewed and seen and critiqued through a political lens. Everything is politics now. Everything must be politicized at all time, and it's just ridiculous. It's sick. You know, it is religion. It is religion. You would think with the amount of dogma that they put out of, I've got to honor this group, I've got to fight for the marginalized, I've got to be not just not racist, but I've got to be anti-racist, I've got to tear down the system. You would think that, there's no room for deviation. There's no room for deviation at all. It's very similar to a religion. Anyway, we're going to be talking with Senator. I keep making this mistake because he was a state rep for so long. Anyway, Senator John Payton. Congratulations on your victory, John. He's going to be joining us here in just a moment. And we're going to go over his bathroom bill when it comes to protecting minors in bathrooms from people who are not of the biological sex that, I don't even know how to describe it anymore, especially according to Facebook standards. I mean, who even knows anymore? That's all the time we have for this segment. We're going to be back here in just a minute. One more segment coming up next of Cam Media. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. Okay, so I told you in the first opening segment, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders has made national headlines. She signed a bathroom bill to protect kids in public schools. It's a really good bill, but in those articles, they were alluding to a second Arkansas bill that would have to do with bathrooms, otherwise known as bathroom bills, although this isn't really a bathroom bill. I wanted to reach out to the the Senate sponsor of Senate Bill 270. He's Senator John Payton, and he joins us now. John, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, and thank you, Paul, for having me. I certainly appreciate the opportunity. And as you said, it's titled as an indecency bill. Of course, it involves bathrooms and dressing rooms and showers and things like that. But any place where you would enter a state of undress, and it does not stop an adult from using a bathroom that's opposite of their birth at sex unless there is a minor present. So it's basically just to say that if we're going to allow them to go in the bathroom of their choice, they need to respect the privacy of the minors and not be in a state of undress while there's a minor present.
Well, that is a policy that is common sense. It's specifically to protect our kids. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Governor Sanders, said in her response to Joe Biden's State of the Union that the differences between normal and crazy, this would be normal. This would be common sense to say, hey, if a minor's in there, then we're not going to let somebody who is, not of the same sex. We want to keep the two genders separate and the two bathrooms separate. That seems like totally common sense to me. But let me ask you this, Senator Payton. How much pushback have you gotten from the radical left on this issue? I would imagine you've been getting emails and, maybe even threats.
So, I see it as common sense. Basically, it is a huge compromise from my side in my position. I would like to run the bathroom bill that they have described my bill to be. If I'm going to have to pass the bill with the arguments that they're making, that it completely bans transgenders or anybody else that wants to use the wrong bathroom from doing that, I wish I had filed that bill. But my bill is actually a compromise from that, and it just says don't go in there, wait until the children are out, and then you can use whichever bathroom you want to. It creates a misdemeanor if you enter and remain knowing that a minor is present. So we've made all kinds of exemptions for people that had a reason to go in to aid another person, to help a child. If there's a medical emergency, even if you're the janitor that's cleaning up, We tried to exempt everything we could imagine, which would be a legitimate reason to be in there. But I would argue that common sense would probably be to run a bill like what they have described mine to be. But mine is a huge compromise. Mine compromises the common sense with uh, a very minimal standard of not being in a state of undress or even being present when the children are in a state of undress. Because, they could enter the wrong restroom for the opposite sex just to observe. So uh,
Yep.
my bill does address that. I don't think that it would ever reach a level of prosecution unless there was an incident where somebody just refused and there was an altercation or something. But uh, it's such a high bar that my bill would set on prosecution. You would pretty much have to have already informed somebody or asked them to leave or
Right.
tell them
Yeah.
there's a minor present, because it has knowingly twice. They have to knowingly enter and remain knowing that a child is present.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think it's a very, very small step in the right direction.
Yeah, a glance, a glance in the right direction. So, where is this bill right now, Senator Payton? It's gotten through the Senate committee. It's gotten through the full Senate, past the full Senate. So now it's in the House. So when we come back from spring break, by the way, how's your spring break going? Going good?
Oh, it's going great. I got to go to Atlanta Motor Speedway over the weekend, watch some car races, and I got to attend my businesses yesterday and today, and try to let the crew know that they're doing a good job and that they're taking care of me well. But I'd sure like to be at the businesses a little more often.
Well, I know. It's not having a full time legislature, which I'm not saying we should. It means that you guys do sacrifice from your jobs back home to go down there and serve. So let me ask you this: so what can we expect? This is going to go through where? Is it going to go through the Judiciary Committee of the House? Is that where this is?
Yes, it's in the House Judiciary, and they have set it for a special order of business on the 28th. So we can expect probably a large crowd of people that are worked up against it. And I'm not sure, many of those people probably have the wrong opinion of exactly what the bill does, but the media doesn't seem to want to cover exactly what it does. They want to call it a bathroom bill. They want to call it a bathroom ban, and they want to say that it's an attack on transgender people. This bill doesn't say transgender in it anywhere, and it's my opinion that straight people that are non-transgender and are not suffering from gender euphoria of any kind might would take advantage of the current state of affairs and enter the wrong bathroom for other reasons.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yes,
so
I know exactly
I
what you're
think we
saying.
we have to try to get a handle on this somehow.
No, and here's what I've been kind of saying this entire time. The government can pass laws and declare things are wrong. We are able to say, we have laws against murder because murder is in fact wrong. A child's innocence, violating a child's innocence, and essentially exposing them to the opposite sex when their parents don't want them. It doesn't matter if the parents want them exposed, as we're seeing with what's going on with our libraries and things like that. We're able to say, hey, look, this is wrong. We're not going to allow it, and that's what we're
Well,
doing here.
so the people that are in opposition to these bills, they say just leave us alone and respect our privacy. Well, the people who are concerned about their children being present in the bathroom with somebody of the opposite sex coming in, they're saying the same thing. Just leave us alone. Let us have our privacy. And you know, I grew up with two sisters, and my mom, three women in the house, and we had one bathroom. you you had to take turns, and I just I've stopped on the side of the road many times. Went into a gas station where they only had a single occupancy bathroom. Sometimes you have to take turns, and so we're just saying that we're going to respect their request to use the wrong bathroom, but we're going to require that they wait their turn until there's no children present.
Yes, and this to me is I admire the strategy and the intent behind this bill because what we're doing right now, really, I think across the spectrum in the General Assembly, and I'll let you respond to this, give you the last word. I think we're getting an incremental approach, a bite at the apple at a time, and I think we're getting great results, and I think people realize that. The depravity of the left has gotten to where we have to do something, and there's these litany of bills that are being passed to protect our children and to stand up for what is right and declare things that are wrong. I applaud you guys for it. I'm a huge fan of it as a dad in this world that we live in, of a young kid, young daughter, seeing what's going on. I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Senator Payton.
Well, and I appreciate all you do to try to get the truth and the facts out there. Truth of the matter is, the overwhelming majority of our constituents would like me to file the bill that the opposition is arguing that I filed, and I'm really beginning to wish that I had filed that bill, because it seems like that's what we have to pass. I mean, the bill that the governor signed, I mean, it just dealt with school children that would be on a field trip or something, or an overnight venture, and keeping the boys separate from the girls like we always have. And I I think that trying to label everything as the bathroom bill that bans anybody that's confused from going in the wrong bathroom, maybe we should go ahead and run that bill if that's what we're going to be labeled for doing.
Really appreciate it. I'm sorry, old habits die hard. Senator John Payton, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
being on.
Folks, Senator Dan Sullivan's coming up next. We've got a big story. Central Arkansas Water Utility has an email they put out from their Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion team arguing against affirmative action reform here in Arkansas. We've got Senator Dan Sullivan coming up next. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. So last week we told you about this affirmative action bill by Senator Dan Sullivan that appeared to be killed thanks to a legislative move done by State Representative Jeff Wardlaw in a committee room. And we played that video for you last week, and it's been getting a lot of traction. Apparently, though, we can report to you tonight that bill is no longer dead, and it has actually been revived. This is a bill that would end discrimination when it comes to hiring practices that the state does based on race and gender and things like that. And so I wanted to reach back out to Senator Dan Sullivan, who joins us now. Dan, thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm glad to be with you. Glad our bill's off of the table and back on the list.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I think this is a big deal, and I really think that. Well, first of all, let's go through what happened. What was your reaction when you saw State Representative Jeff Wardlaw in the committee meeting last week, kind of doing the third base signals, the third base coach signals to get the bill killed or tabled, if you will?
Well, sure. Well, I think you covered it, but I talked with Representative Tosh early that morning and told him I'd like to move the bill to the deferred list so that we could work the committee and work the House, try to find out what we needed to do. And Representative Tosh agreed. And of course, when the committee met, as you saw in the video, Representative Tosh did as he had promised and tried to move it to deferred. And then I didn't hear about it till later in the day when they told me the bill had been tabled. So I went back and watched the video, talked to Representative Gonzalez, and we started figuring out what we needed to do to try to get back on the deferred list so that we could work the bill.
And so now that is the state of the bill right now. It has now been put back on deferred, which means this thing is still live. So kudos to State Representative Gonzalez for making that motion. I know he's the House sponsor of the legislation, I believe. But I also wanted to have you on because there's developing news here. There is an effort within government to try to kill this bill. And what can you tell us about that? What can you tell us about Central Arkansas Water?
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to the committee for getting it off of the table. We had a lot of good conservatives on there. When they realized what had happened, then they course, when the motion came up, they voted for the motion, move it back on the deferred. But yesterday, I got an email from a employee from Central Arkansas Water who shared an email with me that they had received from a group called JEDI, and that stands for Justice, Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion. And that group is a part of Central Arkansas Water that kind of acted, I'm going to say rogue, in a rogue fashion, and sent these emails out to all the employees to try to kill Senate Bill 71. It's also happened with the Arkansas Human Resources Association, Society, I guess, of Arkansas, who has been vigorously campaigning to kill the bill. I spoke with one of their representatives, and when I asked him what if he had any questions about the bill, that I thought the Attorney General had reviewed it, and the Attorney General was okay with it, and did he have any concerns about the bill, I would relay them to the Attorney General. Well, when the bill got deferred, he backed off of that, and I contacted him this morning and hope to engage with him. Paul, when you look at the people who are opposed to the bill, everyone so far that I've talked to has been heavily involved in the DEI or DEI or DIE, as I call it, organizations, heavily involved in far left groups. And in the email that I got from the Central Arkansas Water employee, they linked to several Democrat groups, the Citizens for Arkansas voter group. They have a policy group, but they are all progressive Democrats. And that's who we're fighting against right now on the Senate Bill 71 side, to try to get the bill for people to understand what it does.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what it does is, it's a no-brainer at this point. And it was interesting. I'm glad that Republican committee, revived the bill, because I was kind of dumbfounded last week, saying, "Hey, how could the Republicans do this? This is something that you mentioned the Attorney General. Tim Griffin has said that this bill would put us back in line with constitutional principles, or closer to constitutional principles. You have the
That's right.
United States Supreme Court that's likely to go ahead and end affirmative action when it comes to considering college admissions anyway." But I want to put this email up on the screen from the Central Arkansas Water. Okay, this is what they said here. Good morning, CAW, or Central Arkansas Water. In an effort to keep all CAW employees HIV informed, which I don't know what that means. Somebody can enlighten me.
I have no idea what that means.
I have no idea what that means either. But the JEDI, okay, so JEDI, you mentioned, stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion. So the Central Arkansas Water Division has that's another question. What are they doing with a Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team? But so that team, the JEDI team, would like to share information with you regarding SB 71. That's your bill, Dan. If you or someone you love is a woman, disabled, Black, veteran, Hispanic, or Latinx, which I thought we were getting rid of that word here in Arkansas. I'm pretty sure Sarah Sanders has done that. This bill will impact you and your loved ones. If you or someone you love is then it goes, this bill that would end affirmative action in Arkansas is now back on the deferred list of the House State Agencies and Governmental Affairs Committee. It will likely be heard very soon after the legislature is back in session, because we're on spring break right now. Then the descriptions here. This bill would criminalize any action by governmental entities that consider race, gender, ethnicity, and nationality. Not only does SB 71
Of course, that's just not true.
Well, of course, but I'll get your response here in just a minute.
It's just a lie.
Not only does SB 71 promote white supremacy, but it also attacks all currently protected groups, including all women, veterans, and disabled Arkansans. And then it goes on to lie more about the bill. Dan, I mean, go ahead and respond to this. What are your thoughts on this and the fact that we have Central Arkansas Water
of those are
lobbying
just outright
employees?
lies.
Go ahead.
If you look at, if you put the email back up, you'll see where it says click here to read more on number 4. If you click there, it takes you to the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, and a wing of that foundation, or a part of that foundation, that is also heavily involved in the DEI agenda. And when you click on more of their information on that site, it's incredible how far left that group is. There's another group at the bottom of the page there. It talks about the policy. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe I do. About the, I'm sorry. Let me get my.
No, it's okay.
If you look at that email, it talks about a group that's going to be presenting the Arkansas Public Policy Panel. The Arkansas Public Policy Panel is also a left-wing Democrat progressive group, not a center Democrat, but a progressive Democrat group. That's what this is all linking to. And when you click on that, it goes to a voter group. So it's highly politicized. Their goal is a further left. And when you look on the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation and you look at their mission and their goals, it's all heavily diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, the goal of Senate Bill 71 is strictly needs-based. And the information that's going out about the bill is so much false information in order to scare people. As you can tell in that email, it's a political strategy to try to kill the bill. And I'm going to be working on this. I talked with the CEO at Central Arkansas Water this morning. We had a very good conversation. We're going to work together to find out where this started and what their goals are. I look forward to working with them. I also talked to the Arkansas Economic Development Commission this morning, to the women and minority-owned business. They've been silent on the bill. So a lot of people say that this 71 will kill women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. Paul, the women and minority-owned business of AEDC gives out no money. They do not distribute any money. They're only a networking group, and this bill would not affect them at all. And again, it's so disappointing that there's so much information out there that is just false information and intentionally false information. Not much different than what Senator Tucker put out a couple of weeks ago about closing the museums and the UAMS summer camp. All that's just false information.
Yeah. And to be clear, anybody that gets any federal contracts, this does not apply to them. There's a bill in there, so they're not going to lose money because of this changes to affirmative action. Central Arkansas Water, okay, is that a private entity? What's the relation? Is there a blurry line between? Go ahead.
They are, and I'm not sure yet. That's one of the things I'm working on to find out what their status is. But they're clearly a public entity. They may be privately owned, but they serve the public as all of our water districts do. Now, whether or not they can lobby like this, I don't know. But we're working with attorneys to find out today.
Yeah.
We've FOIA'd and a FOIA for all the emails sent out by the JEDI group. They also do events for Central Arkansas Water. They hold events that educate people, I guess it looks like politically. But again, we're going to find out pretty soon.
Wow. This really is a fascinating session of the Arkansas legislature. It doesn't sound like you're taking much of a spring break, Dan.
Not at all. I've been on the phone the last few days working on this. It's just incredible that we have groups like this embedded in our semi-quasi-governmental agencies. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I've heard of many groups that are coming out against the bill, organizing against the bill, and as you dig down under the surface, you find out where they all tie to. The Arkansas policy, what were they called? The Arkansas Public Policy Panel. Look at the members on that panel. Look at the board. They're all Democrats. They're most all progressives, and they are all working together kind of behind the scenes in these quasi-governmental agencies to kill good legislation.
Well, we've talked about this before, but oftentimes when you have any entity that is existing off of, taxpayer dollars, they themselves, this goes for, executive agencies as well, specifically in the past, they themselves can be giant lobbying arms to continue the funding,
Right.
at the same level or advance more progressive policies, right?
Yeah, and again, I think at some point we may involve the Attorney General in this. If they are lobbying to a great extent, if this is just a one-off, okay, we'll get it resolved.
Yeah.
But if there's a consistent activity by a group like this that engages with outside groups for political purposes to influence legislation, which they say they do, they admit that, then it may be something the Attorney General should look at, not only at this individual group, but other groups, and see how broad this is in our quasi-governmental agencies.
Yeah. Well, and they're doing exactly what the stereotypical left does. A Republican says anything about reforming anything, and they scream white supremacist. It's just not serious.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, actually.
No. And I'll say this for the Senate. The Senate does not operate the way you saw the House operate. If I have fellow senators that oppose my bill, they walk up to me and tell me, I'm going to try to kill your bill, or I'm going to vote against it. And I do the same for them. Apparently the House doesn't operate like that, nor do these organizations like Central Arkansas Water. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on that when you dig below the surface and you find out, it's just, it's not an ethical way to operate. It's not a good, honorable way to operate. I look forward to meeting with members of the House. I look forward to meeting with other members of the executive branch to talk about what we can do, because I think the bill, it's a good bill. It's active in other states. It's been very successful to have things based on need, not on your immutable characteristics like your race, your gender, your color, your national origin. Those are just not what we should be looking at. I looked at on the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. You can look on their website, and you can look at the number of businesses that network there that are really well-to-do businesses, large businesses. And that's fine because they're not, quote, certified and don't take advantage of some of the opportunities offered by the Economic Development Commission. And I had a great conversation with the director this morning, just learning more about what they do and how they do it. And I think there's an easy way for us to work through and base their activities on need, not characteristics like women and minority-owned business or minorities. There's an easy way to do this, and it's the right thing to do. As the Attorney General said, it brings us closer in line with our constitutional principles, and that's what we should be about.
Thank you so much for all your work on this, Senator Dan Sullivan. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
We'll be following this more and more closely. We'll give you more and more updates, folks. That's all the time we have for this edition of Conservative Arkansas Media. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next time.